I wasn't planning on doing a video on in-camera B-roll transitions, but after I dropped my video, how to shoot a cinematic video in a boring place, I got a lot of questions about the transitions, especially the one where I reverse a shot to make a seamless whip transition. It's difficult to explain how that works, so in this video I'll just show you how it works, and I'll also show you some other B-roll transitions that I use a lot in my videos. And if you want to try these transitions yourself, go right ahead, because you can use any camera, GoPro, phone, big camera, small camera, doesn't matter. But before we get started, guys, we are creeping up to 10,000 subscribers. Dat is echt zot, as we say here in Belgium, because I remember celebrating 1,000 subscribers as if I had won the World Championship of YouTube or something like that. I couldn't believe it back then, and now almost 10,000? What? That's insane. But it's all thanks to you, because I know for a fact that my subscribers, you guys are the best subscribers. So if you're new here and you want to join this community of the best subscribers, you know what to do. But anyway, let's talk about in-camera B-roll transitions. And there we go. First transition, a classic. Go to black and start the next shot also with black. Super easy, you can do this transition anywhere because you don't actually need something black. When you move the camera close to an object, it will turn black anyway. Now, important for this transition, but also B-roll in general, is to use the right settings. Always use manual settings, because you don't want the camera to make decisions for you. You don't want it to adjust white balance or exposure while you're shooting. For example, when I put my hand in front of the lens, I want it to get dark, and I don't want the camera to think that it's getting dark and then bump up the exposure. So always use a fixed ISO and a fixed white balance, manual settings. That works best. The next transition is fill the frame, and it's pretty similar to the previous one, but instead of going for black, you look for colors or textures that look similar. So you can go for the sky, for example, because chances are that it looks the same anywhere you go on the same day. Or you can use the ground, tree bark, grass, as long as it looks similar. And then when you're editing the footage, you can either use a hard cut that will work if the textures or colors in both shots are the same. But if there's a slight difference in color or brightness, you can add a short cross dissolve to the cut, just to make both shots blend in a bit more. Something else you should think about is how you plan and use all these transitions. For a short and very dynamic video, like one of those epic B-roll sequences, it could work to use a lot of these transitions, but for a more relaxed, atmospheric B-roll, it's probably better not to use too many, because then the viewer will feel like they're watching transitions and not a video. You know what I mean? Always remember that using hard cuts is not wrong or boring or anything like that. Okay, let's move on with the whip transition. This is probably the most popular transition these days, and you can do it in any direction you want. Left, right, up, down, it doesn't matter. The only thing you have to remember, just like the previous transition, is that the area where you whip to and then the next shot where you come from, that those two areas where you make the transition, that they also look similar. So, for example, if you whip to the sky and then your next shot you come from the ground, for example, it's not gonna look that good because it's super bright and dark. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but again, the colors and brightness should look similar. So the basic idea is that you start your shot slowly like this, to the left, for example, and then at the end of the shot you make a whip to the left. Then your next shot should come in with a whip from the right, and then you move slowly again. And then you'll be able to make a seamless transition between these two shots because of the motion blur. Okay, and now the trick of using a reversed shot for the whip transition. So let's say that our first shot is making a whip to the left again at the end. That means that our next shot should come in from the right. But the problem is that when you come in really fast like that, sometimes it's difficult to get the focus right, especially when you're shooting wide open with a really shallow depth of field. What we can do then is reverse the shot and start at the end. So you set the focus first on the object where you want focus, and then we move in the opposite direction. So we move to the right, and at the end we make a whip to the right. And then when you reverse that clip in post, it will look like you're doing a whip coming from the right, and you'll be able to make a seamless transition with that first clip. So this is that shot, and when I play the clip just like that, I won't be able to make the transition. But when I reverse the clip, like this, boom, there's the transition. I hope now that you see me do it here that it makes a little bit more sense, but just try it for yourself a few times. And again, to make the transition a little bit smoother, you could add a short cross dissolve. Usually when you shoot in 24 frames per second and double the shutter speed, there's enough motion blur to make a seamless transition. But when you're shooting at higher frame rates, sometimes a cross dissolve will help to make the transition smoother. And next is move to the side, pan, blocking, I don't know how to call it, but it's also really fun because you can use a hard cut, but you can also pimp up this transition in post. So the idea is to move the camera horizontally past an object in the foreground, and then the second shot you should start behind an object. It works really well with a pole or a wall or something like that. And like I said, there are two options. So you can either fill the whole screen with something that's wide enough, like a tree that's wide enough or a wall. But you can also use masking and framing in post. What you need to do then is find an object that doesn't cover the whole frame. So a pole or a tree that's more narrow. And for your first shot, you should move all the way past that object. So if you want to do a hard cut, you have to stop in front and then start the second shot behind an object. But if you want to pimp it up with masking and framing, you have to move all the way past that object. And then the next shot actually doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want. Then in post, you can mask and keyframe the shots so that the object makes the transition to the next shot. If you want to know how to do this, just do a search on YouTube for mask transition and look for a video that uses your editing program. Simple as that. And then finally we have the elevator, and it's similar to the previous one, but instead of going left to right horizontally or right to left, we go up and down. So usually you start your first shot and then move down behind an object, and then your second shot you start up behind an object and move down to reveal whatever you want to reveal. And those are the 5 easiest in-camera B-roll transitions, guys. I hope it helps. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up because that really helps me. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.